Hello and welcome back to the Bright Founders Talk podcast from Temi. Temi is an international software development company that designs, builds, and delivers software for sustainable businesses and promising startups. Today we are joined by someone who has had a fascinating career so far. He's a true entrepreneur, Yuriy Boykiv. Welcome to the podcast. How are you today?
Well, thank you, Chris.
Good. Hopefully I got the Boykiv pretty good, or
Boykiv.
Boykiv. Okay, fairly close. I've met a few Yuriys in my life, so I've got that one down. Good. Okay, just got a few quick fire questions. For example, are you a morning or an evening person?
Definitely morning.
Yeah, you find it quite easy to get up and get going.
Yes.
Nice.
In the evening, up to 9 p.m., I'm useless.
Okay. Same, actually. Are you more analytical or more creative?
I would say analytical.
Okay. And what was your dream job as a child?
I was born in Ukraine, and the only sports we had at the time was football, or soccer, as we call it in America now. So I wanted to be a professional football player.
Okay. For any team in particular? Was there any Shakhtar or just whoever?
Well, in Ukraine, I like Dynamo Kiev, but in other parts of the world, I'm a huge Arsenal fan. So.
Okay, well, on the up recently, so good.
Yeah.
Now, you're currently based in the US, even though you did tell me you're not there right now, before we got started. So how did that come about, and how did you find your way to New York from Ukraine? How did that happen?
It's a long story, but I'll make it as short as possible and hopefully entertaining. I studied in Poland in college between 1999 and 2001, and in 2001, I went to America for a visit. It was in July 2001, and I had a ticket to fly back to Poland to continue my studies on September the 13th, 2001. And on September 11th, 2001, I went to the World Trade Center and missed it by literally 20 minutes. The second plane hit.
Wow.
And then my life changed since then. My flight was canceled. I couldn't go back. Nothing was flying for a period of time, and I was scrambling to find a college in the U.S. that would essentially let me transfer my credits from Poland, so I wouldn't miss a semester at school. And I found a local college in New York City that gave me a scholarship, and I was able to continue my studies in the U.S. And then one thing led to another. I found a job, did my MBA. And that's how I stayed in America.
Nice. All right. So, firstly, what's your opinion of New York then? How do you find it?
My favorite city in the world.
Yeah. Does it sleep? They say it never sleeps, so I imagine
it never sleeps. But I think it's extremely dynamic. It's very multicultural. I think it's a very different place than where I grew up. And I think what I like about New York the most, it's never the same. Every day is a new adventure.
Right. Sounds very exciting. Good. And so you started off in marketing, right? You were interning in a marketing agency, I believe. That's how it.
Yeah. So after I essentially stayed in America the first 6 months, I was doing a lot of immigrant jobs and doing door-to-door marketing, where I would go and sell people whatever they were buying and not buying.
They don't do that anymore, do they?
I ask them. Yeah, they still do that. They still go.
Oh, they do? Oh, really? Okay, I thought it would just be emails marketing or.
No, people still do it. It's actually extremely effective because you expect to be marketed through the phone, and suddenly somebody knocks on your door and gives you an offer you can't refuse.
So I think I've heard that in a few movies in New York. Interesting.
We're going to be talking a lot about New York.
How were you drawn to marketing then? Like, why was that your go-to then? Are you because you mentioned you're very analytical. You're more analytical than creative.
I'll tell you honestly, I was extremely creative when I started my career. I worked mostly in the creative agency in the first few years, and then media was added to the mix. And as the media is added to the mix, you have to become analytical. You have to sort of learn what drives people to make a purchase from the very numerical standpoint, not just perception standpoint. And that helped me shift the way I think about things. And because I started in a smaller agency and I grew with that agency, I had to do a lot of things from account services to media planning to new business development. And it helped me learn the trade of advertising from different angles very quickly. So I spent about 7 years of my career in that company. And then I was recruited by a client at the time called company in the US called DirecTV, which is a satellite company similar to probably Sky in the UK. And I ran the international business. And my job was to acquire content from around the world, package it, and market it to individuals in the US.
So what would that include then? Would it be just certain documentaries or certain sports or?
Sports was a driver. So for instance, I brought a lot of cricket programming from India to the US.
Wow.
I brought a lot of soccer channels like Eurosport to the US. And I brought a lot of other TV channels, purely linear TV channels from countries like Poland, China, Southeast Asia, Western Europe, etc. And then you package it with American TV channels and you sell those packages to DirecTV subscribers in the US. And because US is a very multicultural country, a lot of people subscribe to in-language content, as we call it.
Wow. Yeah, I was going to, well, maybe you've answered my question already, but I was going to ask you, it must be quite challenging to market cricket, let's say, to the US audience, but you found a way or there was angles you could use to intrigue people in that, or maybe did you just focus on maybe the migrants who had moved there, kind of maybe...
You start with migrants first because they hardcore fans and they used to watch it on some pirate sites. And obviously quality is not the best and you want to watch sports on the big TV and HD. It makes all the difference. So you start there. And then as the sports started growing and developing, more and more Americans jumped in and watched cricket. I think the nuance of it is the passion of the sports and the idea it's live and best quality. So that drove a lot of subscription.
Especially because when did you start in marketing or advertising? Was it around the early 2000s then?
Yeah, so I started marketing in 2002 and I worked in the agency for 7 years. And then I worked for DirecTV for almost 2 years. And then after that, I saw the opportunity to start my own business. And with a couple of friends, we started Gravity Media, which was a completely different journey from anything I've seen before.
So because you started that media company, is that because you saw a lot of changes happening over that time in the way we consume, marketing or just media in general? Right. Did you see a lot of changes happen?
So because I spent a lot of time in multicultural, I saw the huge opportunity to help American companies market to multicultural consumers in the US. That was the first driver. The second driver was that I believe digital is going to be at the forefront of innovation. So digital was another part that we focused on. It sounds absurd today because almost everything is digital, but back in the days, 90% of budgets were in traditional media. And I'm talking 2009. And then the third one is I'm in New York, I'm an immigrant, I'm an entrepreneur. If I can make it here, I can make it anywhere. So that also drove a lot of decisions. As I said, a lot of New York talk. And so we started with 3 friends, literally 6 computers, hired a couple of people, no clients, tried to figure it out how to do it. Hustling, bustling, reminded me of my early times in America where I did door-to-door knocking. Here I had to cold call people and email people saying, we opened for business. It's a great company. You should trust us. And then eventually somebody did, and then we got our first client. It's funny, our first client was CIA, which was interesting.
What did they specifically,
in the US, you have to do recruitment for any job. So there was like any other job. So we had to market CIA as a career choice to Americans. So that was the first client. Then we got US Army. We did a lot of US Army recruitment campaign for 10 years. Which was exciting and interesting and fun and challenging, extremely challenging. And then we We found Dish Network as a client, then Caesars Entertainment, the casino company, and then Comcast, Western Union, and then Inter Milan Football Club.
No way. Wow.
Things got really exciting, and for me as a football fan, I could bring my passion to the business. Other clients we had was Pele, the football player. Like we represented Pele, literally all of the tweets, all social media we ran for him in the last, I would say, 2 or 3 years of his life, and created his brand book. I was lucky to meet him in person and spend 2 hours with him. So it was a fascinating journey. And in 2016, we got approached by Dentsu, which is the big holding company, to acquire us for our capabilities in digital and multicultural. And we sold the company to Dentsu in November 2016. One of my partners left at the time and decided to do something else. And my business partner, Luba, and I, and Lillian, so there was a third part. There were 4 of us, and Lillian was the third one. We stayed, and we continued through the earnout and through becoming part of Dentsu. And we spent 3.5 years growing the business within the Dentsu holding company. Went through all the ups and downs, change of management, change of leadership, change of direction. You can imagine like being a small pawn again in the big corporation. But I enjoyed that time. I learned a lot from that experience. I built a lot of good friendships. And as my earnout came to an end, it was about 2019, Dentsu offered me a job to run Dentsu X, which is one of the largest media holding companies in the world. And spent a year and a half there, managing clients like LVMH, Jaguar Land Rover, Upfield, Facebook. Amazing experience, despite COVID, because it was also a COVID year. So
right. How you know what when you see the other people you had, your co-founders, where are they from then? How did they contrast with you, or were they sort of similar types of people to you? Or was that important when you started the business? You wanted to have people like-minded or maybe opposite to kind of to contrast, or how was it?
So they all of them were from Ukraine, but they spent a lot of time in the US, so they were more Americanized, I would say, than myself. I think my experience with co-founders is you want to complement each other. I don't think you want people who have the same skill set. And I've seen it many, many times when people have a partner who complements them. It's like plus minus equals something amazing. If it's plus, it's just not working out. You have to be aligned on values and the mission and where you're going but you should have complementary skills. So I was more in new business and finance, and my one co-founder was in HR, another co-founder was in client services, and the third one was in creative services. So it was more like a creative director. So that combination worked really well.
Interesting. And how did you feel when that offer came in to purchase the company? Was it like a celebration, or was it more like was there some hesitation because it's your baby? Let's say you have built this thing, and it's like I'm not sure if you're ready to give it away, or how did you personally feel?
I felt just fine. I think everything is a journey. I'm not attached as much to things as I'm attached to people. So for me, it didn't really matter. At the end of the day, I felt what I wanted to do is to make sure that our people are taken care of. So it's not just the founders who make the money from the sale, but also individuals on the ground. I wanted to make sure that it's not followed by some massive layoff that I have no control over, which we did. And I wanted to make sure that there is a destiny after the event, right? And for the next 3 years after the sale, we were still an independent company that let us run the business the way we wanted to. So I didn't feel a lot of negative change. I only felt pressure, I would say, but in a positive way.
Okay. And then, so after that experience, then you went on to start something new, or you?
Yes. What I did is I started 2 things. I basically, after I left Dentsu, after totally 4.5 years, I had a non-compete and non-solicitations. You can't go after the clients or work in the same capacity. or industry. So what I did, I created a fund where I invested in other entrepreneurs. It's called Fortum Capital. It still exists. I still invest. I made close to 10 different investments, and all of them, luckily, still in business. Mostly startups.
I might probably not luck if based on your story, probably.
I know, but I honestly have not much to contribute besides occasional advice and the check that I wrote in the beginning. But I think the way even I invest is I invest in people, not the ideas that much.
Yeah, I did see that on the website. I thought it was a really interesting thing I did take from that. We invest in people, not ideas. So what makes a good entrepreneur then? Because if you're thinking about more the person, what for you, especially being based in New York, I suppose there must be millions. Like, what do you see in a person that you're like, yes, you've got it?
You never know. I want to tell you, you never know. But I looked at a few things. One is, does he or she have a co-founder? So it's not solo entrepreneur, because you need a balance in life in general. Has he or she failed in the past? And if they did, that's great. Like, they learned something from this. So I always wanted to know, what did you do wrong? Is there like a product market fit and founder market fit? Is the entrepreneur aware of the industry he or she is operating in? And does he or she have any experience in what they're about to go through? Even if they have a little bit of experience, that's much better than zero experience and just have a great idea. And then you have multiple conversations. You're trying to understand how they think. You challenge their thinking. And if they're confident enough, if they're determined enough, then you basically take a leap of faith.
And if you don't mind me asking, then you talked about failure. So then is there anything that stood out for you that was a turning point, or maybe you learned a lot from, and was any ideas you had before that didn't quite work out?
Millions of ideas.
Oh, okay.
I mean, the people we hired in the past, we thought they were the best people in the world. The clients we took, we shouldn't have taken because it's just bad match. The investments that we made in certain directions in the company, and then it didn't pan out. It's ongoing. Like the style of management has changed over time. I was much more command and control. Now I'm all about listening. Like, it's like right now when I talk to people, it's at least the people who work for me at the moment. I let them make a decision. I just, like a psychologist, talk them through their thinking, and in the end of the day, sometimes there is a conversation. Somebody comes with an idea. They go through the process of a conversation, and they come up with from the meeting saying, "I'm not doing it." So you evolve as a human over time.
Is there any difference with your management style? Like, do you take more from different areas, like being an entrepreneur, living in New York, or maybe coming from Ukraine? Is there anything, or is it just kind of a mix, or where did your management style come from, do you think?
I would say I'm a more American in terms of the way I manage than European, even though like I understand European mentality and approach, and I value that a lot. I think in a lot of ways it's better than like American more central approach. But I would say what I like about the American culture, it's determination, is never taking no for an answer and not giving up. The system in the US is extremely competitive, and that's what I love about the country. So I'm looking for that determination in people. I'm not looking for people who are comfortable in the way they are, etc. So I constantly challenge people, and I see who could be challenged. And the people who could be challenged are the ones that I let run departments or businesses, because then I feel like I don't have to make a decision. I don't have to tell them what to do. And I learned that over time, right? Somebody who is by nature very competitive is going to make mistakes quickly, adapt, and learn from them. So I'm more likely to let them make decisions.
And just curious about, what would you say to anyone who is interested in, or maybe other people who have been entrepreneurs and failed, or who would like to give it a try? Is there anything, you would say, to them in terms of like how they can go about it, or how they can get ideas, how they can meet other people that are like-minded? What should they do?
You mean like what should they do in terms of finding the co-founder or finding people to work for?
Just if you want to be an entrepreneur, if you want to maybe get away from the 9 to 5, if you want to do something yourself, like
don't overthink it, just do it. I think it's just a Nike slogan. It applies the best. Like people try to build. There's no business plan when you start a new business. Your only business plan is how much cash do you have to survive, like at the minimum level, and how much can you afford to lose in the next 6 to 12 months. Like if you can figure out those two things out, how much you need to survive and how much you afford to lose, like you can start any business. But make sure you start the business you have some idea about. Like it's not just, oh, it came to my mind and I think it's a great business. It's like, what expertise do you have in this industry that will help you stand out from the rest? Otherwise, you will take years to learn. Like Malcolm Gladwell said, it takes 5 to 10 years to learn a skill. It's the same thing in starting a business. If you spend 5 to 10 years in the industry and you think you found the ways to improve the industry, then you have a very high chance of succeeding. If you've worked in the industry for 3 months, you have a chance of succeeding, but the chance is so small that it's really kind of like, I don't know, it's like becoming a soccer player or football player, right? Everybody can become one, but only 0.01% will become really good ones.
So you think, well, that determination beats talent, let's say, or like going back to the idea, determination will get you there more than the idea.
Yeah, determination beats talent, anything.
Yeah, interesting. I also, as someone who's personally a freelancer, and I've got my small companies or things that I do but are very small, I always find it very hard to give those or delegate those things to other people because they come back and I'm not fully happy with them. So do you have any experience of that, being involved in so many different companies, when you have to be like, okay, I trust you with it? How do you feel giving it away, and are you always happy, or you accept it? Won't be like,
I'm an extreme. In that sense, I give people third or fourth or fifth chance all the time. Where my co-founder, she was great because she read people 10 times better than I did. And if she sees somebody fail after second time, she would immediately cut the rope. And you need that balance, because otherwise you're either going to be super distrusting or you're going to be super trusting. So I think you're not wrong what you're doing and what you're saying. You're probably very good at reading people. But I think sometimes giving them a second chance and letting them go could be a good counterbalance.
Okay, giving them some rope, but not too much.
Giving them some rope. Yeah.
Okay, this one's a little bit more abstract. I'm just curious, like if you had the power to solve one major problem in the world through your entrepreneurial endeavors, what would you choose to solve?
I would help Ukraine win the war. That would be my number one thing, if I could do it. I'm doing as much as I can through contribution to different charities, supporting people on the ground. But it's not enough. Every day you wake up and think, what can you do more? How can you support the country? And even though I'm American, but deep inside I'm still Ukrainian. So it's every day on my mind, how to help.
Yeah, of course. Is there, just talking about Ukraine, is there a large community, by the way, like in New York? Is there much of a...
It's very large. I didn't know how large it is until the war started a year and a half ago, in the second phase of the war.
Right.
A year and a half ago, because a lot of people who even were Russian speakers became very pro-Ukraine and Ukrainian, and that community has grown tremendously. And what also pleasant is how big of a support Americans are given to Ukraine on an everyday basis, and Europeans as well, of course. But the fact that there is still a huge support today, 18 months later, there is obviously some fatigue, but generally it's, I met people who learned Ukrainian in the last 18 months, Americans.
Right. Yeah, it's very actually, outside my window right now, there's 2 flags. There's one there, there's another one, a little bit smaller, but there's 2 flags outside my window right now, which is something I wouldn't have seen a few years ago. That's for sure. I think a lot of people.
Germany, at every corner there was Ukrainian.
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah. So small, but good upside to the situation. Just going back to the other thing that I found really interesting about you was you have a theatre company, and it seems like it's not just an average theatre company. It seems like it's like I saw that it says the future of entertainment is immersive. So I was curious, what does that mean? Where are we going to? Is this the metaverse kind of immersive, or how is this? What's the plan?
It's a great idea. So it's a company that my wife runs. It's called To Be Created, and it focuses on partnering with museums, top museums around the world, licensing their content about a particular historical event, and then taking that content and creating an immersive show. Essentially, it's a digital exhibit of a content from a physical museum. So what she did was she partnered with actually Oxford University Museum for the King Tut exhibit. And there's an institute called Griffith Institute. They licensed content from Griffith Institute about King Tut and discovery of King Tut, and they now are doing the travel digital exhibit, just opened in Taiwan, and there are plans to open in Brazil and the US and other places around the world. And then there are other topics they develop in. So next year, there's 80-year anniversary of Normandy. There is, last days of Pompeii. So there's sort of content in the pipeline. But the idea is, how do you bring the historical event from a static to a live experience in the 360-degree setting? So you attract more and more people to learn about the history and also get entertained at the same time.
I know my experience of history classes was very, very dry. A lot of very selective history from the UK. A lot of kings and queens and what else? The Second World War and so on. Not so much talk about Australia and the US and that kind of thing. Strangely, but yeah, it would have been a lot better if we had. At the time, it was just textbooks and little drawings and stuff.
Same with me.
So brilliant. Well, I want to thank you for your time. It's been really fascinating talking to you, and I think everyone listening will appreciate what you've said. Thank you very much, and I wish you a nice evening.
Thank you.